Welcome to Embody Your Brilliance, a podcast for visionary daughters of immigrants and creative entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eunice Kimian, somatic life and business coach, mom, and Korean American eldest daughter of immigrants. Each week, you'll hear stories, insights, and conversations to help you embody your unique brilliance beyond survival mode so that you can design a life you actually want and grow a peaceful, profitable business you're proud of that supports you. Hi, everyone. I am so excited for this week's episode around visibility. So, I've been reflecting a lot just from my practice of supporting daughters of immigrants and creative entrepreneurs who are growing businesses in a profitable way without sacrificing their peace or joy. And also on my own creative entrepreneurship journey of growing my coaching business, I noticed that the theme of visibility is something that comes up a lot. And it makes sense, right? So, a lot of us, when we're growing our businesses, we are reckoning with the fact that we're putting ourselves out there, which can feel very vulnerable, making an offer, creating something that means a lot to us, and then putting it out there, which may result in rejection or criticism or judgment. So it's scary, and whether it's outreach, like finally sending that email, or being very confident about the rates that you've set in terms of the pricing. Maybe it's finally taking that action to make that post on social media or releasing that album as an artist. Whatever it is, the theme of visibility is an unavoidable topic for a lot of entrepreneurs. So today I want to talk about how that can feel very, very different for daughters of immigrants. And I want to explore why visibility can feel even more deeply vulnerable based on our lived experiences, cultural conditioning, and just the way our nervous systems may be responding to something that makes a lot of sense, actually. And I will also share from the perspective of a somatic business coach about why it's so important to anchor into that felt sense of safety in our bodies in order to be seen and in order to shine and be visible for the sake of your business, for the sake of your artistry, for the sake of your joy, and how to do that without abandoning yourself along the way, or even abandoning the relationships or the cultural connection that you have. So, I want to start off by saying visibility isn't just about confidence. There's a lot of advice out there around just do it, just be visible, just post the thing, just, rip off the band-aid, just do it. You know what I mean? Like, just do it uncomfortable, put yourself out there. So I don't disagree with the fact that sometimes the next step can be uncomfortable and still we want to do it. Like, I don't want to negate that ideology or that strategy. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, it makes so much sense why, as daughters of immigrants, it goes way beyond surface level confidence in order to be able to show up in the ways that we want to, and in order to be seen in the ways that we want to. It really comes down to safety. And so if you grew up being hyper vigilant of how everyone else is feeling in the room, like you are really good at reading the room, tracking other people's emotions, and, the eldest daughter in me is like, yes, this has been my whole life. And also from a standpoint of being in a collectivist culture. So if you're a daughter of immigrants from a collectivist culture, so for me, I'm Korean American and I'm 1.5 Gen, meaning I immigrated to the US when I was 7. I grew up in the context of having to always be mindful of like what other people thought. not just as a way to be polite, but that's just the way Korean culture works, you know? In Korean culture, there's this concept called Nunchi. It's the subtle, often invisible ability to read a room. It's to sense what's unspoken, to track other people's feelings, and to adjust your behavior to preserve social harmony. And it's not just a social skill, a nice to have, it's an expectation. And so I find that part of that is also like learning to stay humble so that you don't make other people uncomfortable. And it teaches you in some ways to stay small enough to not disrupt or annoy people and not to offend people. And I find that also as a woman that applies differently than from men as well. And so I have found that the concept of nunchi actually shows up a lot in visibility because if I am taught from an early age to always be mindful and read the room and track other people's emotions as a way of indicating whether or not I'm okay, I'm perceived as palatable, as someone that belongs, visibility can be very stressful because every time I put something out there, there's a part of me that's been trained to always read the room. And when it comes to social media, like how do you read the room? It's a lot of projection, mental projection into like, I wonder what people will think, And when it comes down to it, it's all about safety because in collectivist cultures where modesty, self restraint, and blending in are prized and prioritized as the number one thing. Being too visible can be seen as inappropriate and inconsiderate, which can lead to ostracizing, which is actually like if you think back to our ancestors from the caveman era, we had to belong in order to survive. Like if that group that you're in doesn't accept you or abandons you and doesn't want you in there for whatever reason, there's a chance that you'll be eaten by, a predator in the jungle. Like that's the level of survival and level of high stakes that our nervous system and our survival brain places on social acceptance and belonging. And so if you as a daughter of immigrants grew up where your parents or your families or your school system just placed a lot of emphasis on how you fit in, it makes sense that as you grow into more visibility and take up space and charge your price, make that post, share your voice unapologetically without diluting yourself, it can be really, really scary because it's almost like that survival brain and part of you is rightfully so freaking out that what if something bad happens? What if I share my true unfiltered self and they think I'm too much and they hate me? What if they judge me and don't take me seriously and my business fails? What if I shine bright and take up more space and people don't like me anymore? What if that's threatening, And what if I raise my prices and people think I'm selfish? What if they can't afford it? There's so many questions that come up, and that's why visibility can feel so complicated because under all of these questions and feelings of uncertainty and anxiety live a deeper concern, which is belonging. And belonging, going back to our ancestral ways, equals safety. And we're always, as a human species, as social animals, our nervous system and our brain will always, always hedge for safety at all costs because that's what helps us survive, right? And that's what helped us get here. But in order to get to where you want to go, whether it's growing your business to the next level, whether it's an income goal, whether it's a reach goal, growing your audience, growing your community, whether it's showing up more boldly in your story and your voice, whatever that goal is requires visibility. And so how can you show up even when there is this deeper fear around being judged, being misunderstood, being rejected, even when visibility can feel like it's the wrong thing to do. And it's almost like seeming like this betrayal almost of the very values that kept you safe, whether it's humility, whether it's always acquiescing to what makes other people feel comfortable, or being modest enough to never make waves with what you're sharing. And the thing is, the side effect of just going with what our protection mechanisms will try to do, which is to not be visible, like the side effect of that is one, like you may never press send on that email or press post on that post or release that album. You may keep your rates the same or lower it. You may never put your brand out there or that offer, meaning the people who have been waiting for you and would benefit from your support and your medicine just never get to see you. And also, so many of our voices need to be heard and deserve to be heard. And it makes sense that, I don't know, we feel more alone in this because we're not talking about it. So that's the purpose of this episode. Like, can we first talk about the fact that for daughters of immigrants, being visible might come with a few other things that the mainstream media and the coaching world may not focus on. It may not address and acknowledge that there are deeply ingrained survival mechanisms from our cultures, from generational trauma, all these things that make it literally so difficult for our bodies to feel safe enough to put ourselves out there. So, first, I want to say that like your nervous system isn't resisting visibility because you're quote unquote self-sabotaging or getting in your own way. It's really doing its job of protecting you from these potential consequences. And like I really want to validate that part that is scared, because it's not coming up with these reasons out of just pure paranoia. It actually has real reasons of why we would be scared, because maybe you experience this. And I know, like, I asked my mom this because I was like, why is this feeling so difficult for me to show up in a visible way, right? And to shine unapologetically. And she was like, well, remember what happened to you in preschool, in elementary school, in middle school? And I was like, oh my gosh, I had just suppressed so many of these memories because it was so painful. And I realized that so many of us probably have some sort of experience back in the day where if you took up space or shared your voice unapologetically or succeeded in this really vibrant way, that there was some sort of response to that. And maybe not everyone has had like a negative situation happen, whether it's standing out too much and, you know, a friend group leaving you, or people trying to take you down just because it was an extremely competitive environment. I don't know. Everyone's life is different leading up to why visibility can be difficult. But I'm curious if there's something that maybe you didn't realize is actually taking a big role or playing a big role here in terms of making you feel like becoming visible is a threat, right? And it doesn't even have to be your own lived experience. Like for me, I realized that in Korean culture, it's so homogenous and has had this traumatic history of being repeatedly colonized and thrust into war and intensely building up from the bottom of deep poverty into what it is now. It's just required a lot of intensity and a lot of like collectivist mobilization and working together as a country. And there's just been positive reinforcement and validation of that, but also from this like competitive scarcity mindset too, of like if you succeed, then that means that there's no space for me mentality, you know? I just know that there are examples of, for example, Pablo, who's a hip hop artist and Korean diaspora, and he's really talented. He went to Stanford. He graduated with a bachelor's and a master's from Stanford. And for whatever reason, there's a whole Wikipedia page on this too called 다진요. But like literally people are going to the lengths of going to the university, like from Korea, to make sure that he really did go to Stanford. And like to the point where someone forged his transcript to prove that he didn't go there. And it's like from the outside, you're kind of wondering like, why are they doing this, right? But then from a Korean culture standpoint, it's like if you shine too bright, if you're too visible, if you are too successful, there's this target on your back. And like I just see this example play across not just celebrities, but also in some of the daughters of immigrants that I coach or I've connected with. And they're telling me examples of how they have felt like they had to dim their light in order to keep friends, in order to be accepted, in order to feel like not too much. And yeah, there's this little child version of us, our inner child, or maybe even inner teenager. I don't know. There's multiple characters involved, but I've noticed a trend where it's like the younger versions of us that learn to dim our light are feeling really scared when we're putting ourselves out there as entrepreneurs and creatives now. And so, something that I wanted to really offer as a possibility is that what would visibility look like when it doesn't have to come at the cost of your sense of safety and belonging, right? So, how do you grow your business and visibility with that sense of safety in your body? And I think that just requires us to be a lot more intentional than just doing it or just posting it or just doing it scared. And it's not to say that we have to get rid of all the fear. Rather, I would say it's like, can we deeply validate the parts of us that are scared and not make them feel like they're being scared for no reason, but there is a reason. So it really starts with validation. And also, it's like, how can we nurture and give the parts of us that are really scared? How can we give them the nurturing that they need in order to feel safe enough and to trust the other parts of us that are really confident about this to take that next step forward, right? So instead of just like pushing us to do something that's really, really uncomfortable and feels really unsafe, it's like, how can we create that level of safety from the validation and support from the parts of us that are confident, and also get clear on the micro step forward as a first step into visibility so that we don't feel like we're stretching too far, too much, too fast, and that we can grow our business and our visibility, not necessarily by slowing down, like for the sake of slowing down, but like how can we go at the pace that our nervous system and the parts of us that are scared for them to catch up to where we want to go. Because when all of us are on board and facing the same direction, even the parts of us that were originally scared and also ringing the alarm around what if, something bad happens, like if we're able to validate them and be with them and love on them and encourage them, all the things, and they end up co-signing on this decision to move forward with becoming visible, it just becomes so much more pleasant and also just more sustainable because it doesn't feel like pulling teeth each time, right? And so something that I've returned to as a source of power for me is that my mom always told me that she had a conception dream called taemong. It's a Korean concept of this dream that either the mom has during pregnancy or even before pregnancy, or it might be someone around her that dreams of this thing on behalf of the mom. But essentially, my mom dreamt of these gems, these really beautiful, shining, multicolored gems like rubies, emeralds, sapphires, diamonds, just an abundance of gems. And when she woke up, she knew that that was the conception dream and she was pregnant with me. And I was just like, that what a beautiful dream, first of all. And also that speaks to how I view our work as daughters of immigrants, reclaiming our own unique brilliance, our journey of embodying our brilliance, right? And it's not this one homogenous way that we need to quote unquote succeed or shine. Whatever color, cut, size, whatever gem you are, it's like you deserve to shine. You deserve to feel safe to shine and not dim your brilliance. And how can we all support each other to shine in our own unique brilliance, in our own cut, in our own color? And by you shining in your brilliance and feeling safe to shine, you're also giving others the permission and the encouragement to do the same. And so that's what I want to leave you with. What is your relationship like with visibility and being seen? How do we allow ourselves to be fully seen and shine? And I'm curious to hear from you, first of all. So DM me or email me, find me on IG or LinkedIn. I would love to hear what your relationship is like with visibility. I'm curious if you have this concept that's similar to Nunchi in your culture or in your upbringing, your relationship to people pleasing or vigilance when it comes to putting yourself out there and how it's showing up in your marketing or pricing or creative self expression. And if this is something that you want support on in the season of your business, I would love to support you through one-on-one somatic business coaching, where I work with clients to unpack how some of these tendencies show up in their marketing, pricing, and business and all the things, and understand like if you have a goal, let's just say like an income goal or a growth goal in your business, and identify your top challenges or obstacles along the way. And visibility is one of them, like fear of judgment or fear of rejection or fear of being misunderstood. I would love to explore what this could look like for you, our work together, because I incorporate somatic tools, parts work, nervous system healing, and culturally informed coaching along with business strategy to figure out what is it that you actually want? What is it that is actually in the way? And how do we move through it in a way that feels safe in your body and also congruent with what your nervous system is asking for so that we're not compromising on your joy, on your safety while you get the tangible results that you want, right? And I want to honor whatever upbringing or cultural expectations or things that you may be carrying generationally as you tackle this. Those are all real things. And I don't want you to feel like you have to choose one over the other, your culture or your success, right? So it's really nuanced work. And I would love to be able to support you in this chapter. So DM me, you can book a one-on-one clarity call where we can dive into what your 6-month goal looks like and figure out what your top obstacles are and create an action plan together. And we can also decide if it's a good fit to work together. It's a no pressure call, so book that today. I have a few spots open for July. I also want to invite you to an upcoming event called Save to Shine. It's a somatic healing circle all about this, about visibility, about showing up as entrepreneurs, daughters of immigrants, and creatives. And how do you allow yourself to be seen in a way that feels okay for your body and safe for your nervous system? So RSVP to that. It's going to be amazing. And otherwise, find me on IG at Eunice Kimian. I'm also on LinkedIn. And join my email list. I share more stories and resources around this topic. So thank you for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next week.